This is CBC Vancouver News.
It is hard for us because we are afraid to die.
A desperate plea to stay. BC's health minister calls on Ottawa to stop the deportation of a new Westminster healthcare worker. Officer-involved shooting, one woman is dead in North Vancouver as BC's police watchdog investigates.
It is completely out of control, and it continues to be out of control. People don't need to be dying from this disease.
Finding a cure for diabetes, how groundbreaking research from BC is leading the way. Good evening, I'm Leanne Young. Thanks for joining us. A new Westminster mother is pleading desperately with Ottawa to stop her deportation. Fearing for their safety, Claudia Zamorano and her family fled Mexico to Canada 5 years ago. The healthcare worker even has the support of BC's health minister. But as Janella Hamilton reports, advocates say Canada's refugee rules are so narrow, essential workers like her are falling through the cracks.
Claudia Zamorano says her family fled Mexico almost 5 years ago to escape death threats from organized crime groups.
I have to sleep with a knife under the bed.
Zamorano, who works full-time as a housekeeper in the COVID ward at Royal Columbian Hospital, says her biggest fear is having to go back to her hometown with her 9-year-old daughter. But after receiving a call from CBSA a couple weeks ago, that nightmare may become a reality.
I was like, we are here. Here we go again.
Even though the family applied for permanent residency on humanitarian and compassionate grounds 1 year ago, she says the paperwork has yet to be processed. Now, a removal order has been issued, which means her family will be deported on December 19th. Zamorano says they are used to rejection from the federal government after being denied refugee status and other regularization programs launched by Ottawa during the pandemic.
These small, narrow programs ends up leaving people like Claudia's and her family falling through the cracks.
Chu says the criteria for the federal government's migrant worker regularization programs need to change. He, along with other advocates, are calling on Ottawa to approve the family's application and stop their impending deportation.
Housekeepers play an essential role in infection control in our hospitals. It's a scary job, but women like Claudia stepped up and they did everything they could to keep patients, their fellow workers, and the public safe.
And it's not just Claudia who's making a difference. Her mother-in-law volunteers her time making meals for people in Vancouver's downtown east side. Her husband and brother-in-law are skilled trades workers in the construction industry. BC Health Minister Adrian Dix is also speaking out against the federal government's decision. In a statement, the Ministry of Health says from the beginning of the pandemic, people have relied on healthcare workers like Claudia. We owe it to the family to keep them safe and strongly urge the federal government to suspend their deportation. Claudia says she will continue fighting to stay in Canada for her daughter.
So she can live a free life. Safe.
Janella Hamilton, CBC News, New Westminster.
BC's police watchdog is investigating an officer-involved shooting that has left a woman dead. It happened last night in North Vancouver. RCMP were called to a co-op complex around 7:30 p.m. They say they received reports of a woman allegedly trying to attack another person with a weapon and that a woman was trying to break into a home. Officers believe both incidents involve the same suspect. When police arrived, they say they found the woman after failed attempts to take her into custody. An officer discharged their firearm. The woman was pronounced dead in hospital. The Independent Investigations Office is asking for witnesses or any dash cam footage. Newly elected Surrey Mayor Brenda Locke is getting her first shot at delivering on a campaign promise tomorrow. She and council will be asked to decide on the fate of Surrey's new police force. City staff released a report outlining some of what it would take to stick to the RCMP or continue with the transition to a municipal force. As of mid-October, the Surrey Police Service has already hired more than 290 officers. About 150 of them have been deployed to the front lines. The report did not lay out the cost of either options. Locke has said she would keep the RCMP in Surrey. If you've gone grocery shopping lately, you may have noticed a spike in prices for fresh vegetables beyond just inflation. The cost of leafy green veggies like romaine and spinach are higher than usual in many stores, along with cucumbers and cauliflower. Organic ones priced as much as $12 a head. Experts say it's because BC relies on imports from California this time of year, and crops there aren't as abundant this season.
In many parts of California, in particular, the Salinas Valley was hit by a couple of viruses over the last few months. The weather was quite dry as well in October, which impacted crops, especially for leafy greens. Cucumbers, cauliflower, a lot of these products are coming from California.
Charbois says prices should return to normal by December when imports start arriving from Arizona. To cut costs, he suggests heading to the freezer aisle. Frozen vegetables are often cheaper, but as nutritious. Voting begins today to determine whether the BC Liberal Party should change its name to BC United. Liberal leader Kevin Falcon supports the switch, but not everyone agrees the party needs to be rebranded. Mira Baines has more.
Vice President of the BC Liberal Party, Caroline Elliott, says members can vote for the name BC United over the phone in addition to voting online, starting at 10 a.m. today to Tuesday evening.
Really been driven by members from day one. Our leader, Kevin Falcon, has been 100% clear about that. He said, look, this is something that our members keep talking about. Let's just make it totally up to them.
Martin Brown, who is the former chief of staff to BC Liberal Premier Gordon Campbell, says changing the party name to BC United is a bad idea and reflects a change in ideology.
An awful lot of people will be alienated that are Liberals. Clearly, this is all about bringing more Conservatives into the party.
Political scientist Stuart Prest says rebranding can energize the party if there's also an effort to attract younger voters in urban ridings where the Liberals have faltered.
What really matters is less the name of the party itself and what kinds of policies become associated with it.
Vote results are expected to be announced on Wednesday. Mira Baines, CBC News, Victoria.
New research out of BC Children's Hospital is giving people with diabetes hope for a real cure. Some British Columbians have been selected as patients in the clinical trial. Their journey has become the subject of a documentary being screened at the Vancouver International Film Festival tomorrow. Eva Yuguen-Senge reports.
I can see my blood sugars via Bluetooth from my continuous glucose monitor.
Lisa Hepner spends all day checking her blood sugar on her phone. She's been waiting for a cure for diabetes since she was diagnosed 30 years ago.
There's a way where your insulin pump can turn off if you're going too low, but that's not a cure.
She thinks stem cell research being done at UBC and VGH is the real thing. That's why she made a documentary about the clinical trial. In the trial, stem cells or beta cells were implanted in participants to produce insulin. If they work, stem cells would eliminate the need to constantly monitor blood sugar levels.
It's a potentially unlimited source of cells, so we would not have to rely on organ donors in the future to replace insulin-producing cells in type 1 diabetes.
Lana Mahel was one of 15 people implanted with beta cells at VGH 2 years ago, but she was recently removed from the trial.
I had everything explanted out because, I wasn't insulin-free from this trial, but that doesn't mean you don't give up hope.
Her condition still improved from participating in the trial.
I was able to get C-peptide, which is the precursor to insulin producing, so that to me is, moving a step forward.
But even if the trials are successful, accessing the cure is a whole other challenge. And some say making treatments that already work available to all people living with diabetes would have a greater immediate impact.
So BC Pharmacare covers insulin pumps and it covers continuous glucose monitors, and the apps and things are available for free from various sites. But all of these devices are subject to the deductible.
The documentary about the trial is screening at the Vancouver International Film Festival on Monday to celebrate World Diabetes Day. In the meantime, the diabetes community is again hopeful this time a true cure is only a few years off. Eva Yuguen-Senge, CBC News, Vancouver.
And some disappointing news for local football fans. The BC Lions lost to the Winnipeg Blue Bombers in the Western Division Final today.
Pocket collapsing, spins out. Jefferson trying to track him down. Warwick stumbles. Jefferson got just a piece of him. Flags on the play again.
The Lions pulled to within 28-20 with less than 3 minutes to go, but ultimately could not catch up to the Blue Bombers. The Bombers will now play the Toronto Argonauts in the finals on Sunday. This will be their third straight Grey Cup appearance. Well, the World Cup begins in Qatar in a week, and tonight we know who will be playing for Canada. One of the headliners is a very well-known name here in Vancouver. No, we are not kidding. 22-year-old All-Star Alphonso Davies got his start with the Vancouver Whitecaps. Earlier today, Davies took to Twitter and wrote, "A kid born in a refugee camp wasn't supposed to make it. But here we are going to the World Cup. Don't let anyone tell you that your dreams are unrealistic. Keep dreaming, keep achieving." The 26-man roster will be representing the country in its first men's FIFA World Cup since 1986.
It seems like the spell has been broken. It's begun to dissolve.
As Democrats keep control of the Senate after midterm elections, finger-pointing starts in the Republican camp. We'll have that story next. After much drama for the last few days, U.S. midterm election results became a little clearer this weekend. The Democrats now have enough seats to keep control of the Senate. Katie Simpson reports on who Republicans are now blaming for the disappointing performance.
Where were they? One here.
After an excruciating wait, Democrats are ready to let loose.
Okay, fun one.
It took 5 days of counting ballots, but Catherine Cortez Masto pulled out a squeaker of a win in Nevada. And with it, Democrats clinched control of the Senate.
Now, we celebrate, and let's continue the work. Thanks, everyone.
This is a huge relief for the president, since a Democrat-controlled Senate can block Republican legislation that may be at odds with his agenda. And he'll have enough Senate votes to confirm judicial appointments, including a Supreme Court pick should a spot open.
I feel good, and I'm looking forward to the next couple of years.
The country now waits to learn the fate of the House, which is leaning toward Republican control with a slim majority, a far cry from the red wave that was widely predicted. Some Republicans blame Donald Trump for the disappointing results.
I think it's basically the third election in a row that Donald Trump has cost us the race, and it's like, 3 strikes, you're out.
Those who were most closely aligned with the former president underperformed. Those who are talking about the future, who have managed their states well, they overperformed. The American people want ideas, they want a future.
But even though most high-profile Trump-endorsed candidates lost, at least 150 House Republicans elected so far are considered election deniers for casting doubt on the integrity of the 2020 vote. Democrats are relieved there's no repeat of that now.
Today, it seems like the spell has been broken. It's begun to dissolve. We don't have Republicans around the country claiming that they really won when it's been certified that they lost their elections.
If Republicans take the House as expected, it means they can block legislation from Democrats that doesn't align with their agenda. So there will be gridlock. And Republicans have said they plan to use Congress to launch investigations into Joe Biden, for example, into the U.S. pullout from Afghanistan and his son Hunter Biden and his business dealings. And Republicans have also said they'll target the Department of Justice, looking for answers about the search warrant executed at Donald Trump's home in Florida. Katie Simpson, CBC News, Washington.
Joe Biden today vowed to maintain dialogue with China as he prepared to meet President Xi Jinping.
I know him well, he knows me. We have very little misunderstanding. We just got to figure out where the red lines are.
The Biden-Xi meeting is on the G20 Bali Summit sidelines, just after the Association of Southeast Asian Nations Summit. And it comes amid deepening division over trade and Beijing's hardened policies on Hong Kong and Taiwan. The Ukraine war is also overshadowing the world's diplomacy. Facing renewed criticism, Russia's foreign minister accused the West of militarizing Southeast Asia in an attempt to dominate it. And we're now taking you to the world-famous Berg Lake Trail in Mount Robson Provincial Park in BC, near the Alberta border. It was ruined by extreme flooding after the heat dome last year, a sign of climate change right here in our backyard. The park is now being rebuilt, and the CBC's Rihanna Schmunk went there to look at how this project is acting as sort of a blueprint for other parks across the country on how to survive the effects of climate change.
So we are just heading up now to get in the helicopter to fly up to the Berg Lake Trail, and that's usually something that you would hike in and do and camp for a couple days. But we're flying today because the trail's been closed for well over a year.
It will likely be years before people can see the trail that makes Mount Robson a world-class hiking destination. It's been shut down since a flood in 2021 ripped out entire sections of the path. Park manager Elliot Ingalls knows this area and what happened better than anyone.
So we are basically on the shores of Berg Lake. We're kind of standing in the middle of paradise, I guess. It's kind of one of the most beautiful places I think, in the world.
Well, now you get a full view of Mount Robson, the highest peak in the Rockies, nearly 13,000 feet high. The tumbling glacier takes form, and in a furrowing of crevasses tumbles into Berg Lake. Like this.
Well, you go across something like this, if the weather switched on you and you got a rainstorm, that'd be gone.
That'd be gone. It sure could.
Half a century later, that prediction came true. It's hard to believe anything could shake Mount Robson's sheer, overwhelming mass. But a few days of extreme heat and floodwater from melting glaciers tore it apart.
We're standing right in the creek. This creek blew out and took out a major piece of infrastructure. Like, there's some old wood over there. Like, that's not from this bridge. There's just debris everywhere through here. When we were up here for those few days, it was about 37 degrees at this elevation, which was just incredibly, incredibly hot for this area. And we were watching the glaciers. It looked like they were sweating. You could see water, visibly seeing water, like pooling off of the glacier. They have a finite lifespan, and we're watching them recede in front of us. And last year especially, the volume of water combined with the hot weather created this major event. And yeah, this area was underwater. This bridge was underwater. It was like nothing I've ever seen in my lifetime working in parks.
The full scale of the damage didn't really become real until we traveled a few kilometers south into a valley near some of the trail's most recognizable waterfalls. It's the place Ingalls remembers some of the worst 48 hours of his career.
How vivid are your memories of those days?
I started up the trail at about 4:30 in the morning, and as soon as I got to the first bridge, I was just like, okay, this is it. 20 tons of rocks covering a bridge that had sat there for 20, 30 years, the river coming up 30 feet. This is unbelievable. This is nature, as much damage as you can see along this trail. This site, Whitehorn, is where we mobilized the helicopter and search and rescue, loading about 30 hikers into the helicopter and flying them down.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
I couldn't believe it. When I got called on the radio that morning, we knew it was going to be bad, but we didn't think it was going to be that bad.
Somehow, everyone made it off the mountain safely, but the trail was in bad shape.
If you had to, compare this area to the other parts of the trail that flooded, where did this rank in terms of severity of damage?
So while the flooding was happening, this water would have been well over the top of where we are right now. And now you can see it's kind of dug a deep channel along the edge of where the trail used to be. To me, it's so unbelievable, and it really speaks to the event and how unbelievable nature can be.
This year, crews started repairs with new bridges around Kinney Lake, the lower third of the trail. The work will progress to bigger projects like reinforcing riverbanks and elevating or rerouting trail sections that were wrecked. The work is complicated and time-consuming, to say the least, but it's critical.
Comfortable, a nice height. Excellent for having tons of stuff on. I could see families playing cards on there. That is a nice spot. BC Parks knows how vital this is to the community. It's the second oldest park in British Columbia. This trail has had an incredibly long history of people recreating here, and it's just a part of the history of the park. And people will look back on this in another 100 years and say, remember when that happened? Hopefully it's an eye-opener for future generations to look at how we recreate and how we do conservation projects in parks, and it's important. It's a story to tell.
Rihanna Schmunk, CBC News, Mount Robson.
And you're looking at a time lapse from the top of Mount Seymour's Mystery Peak on a gorgeous afternoon with that sun setting. We have more sunshine on the way. Stay with us. We'll have the full forecast after the break. Time now to take a look at weather. It was crisp, cool, and beautiful outside. Here's a look at how things turned out on the satellite radar. You can see pretty clear through most of the province, except for a bit of cloud cover. No precipitation and cool temperatures across the south coast, sitting at 5 degrees at YVR. In the valley, 1 degree in Abbotsford, and across the province tomorrow, another gorgeous day in store. A little bit chilly, but nothing we can't handle without a good parka. -2 in Dease Lake. If you're in Prince Rupert, well above the freezing mark. 7 degrees will be your high. Port Hardy looking at a 5. If you're in Kelowna or Williams Lake, it will be below the freezing mark. Same goes for Cranbrook, but it will be a sunny one. Here's your 5-day forecast across Metro Vancouver. For the next couple of days, looking at an afternoon high of 8 degrees. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, pretty sunny. Those clouds will build in as you head through midweek, and you can see those temperatures really dropping, finally heading below the freezing mark as we head towards the end of the week. And that does it for us this Sunday night. That's your late news. Thank you so much for watching. For news at any time, always our website, cbc.ca/BC. I'll see you back here the weekend after. Have a good night.